So this is being live streamed? Okay. Perfect. Do you think we need to stand within the width of up here? Do we need to get a little closer? Do you know? Or you think? Okay. All right. Do we need to stand more? Oop, nah. Do you want us to get a little more in the middle? Thank you, Chandler. Appreciate it. Are we good to go? All right. Well, thank you. Y'all come on in. You know, can sit anywhere, but we have a relatively small group. So if you want to come a little closer, we'll try to make this as intimate and as personal a session as possible. My name's Rhett Brown, and I am the president of Wingate University. I came to Wingate in 1986. I was a transfer student. And after graduating, I was going to stick around for a couple of years until I figured out what I was going to do with my life. And somewhere along the way I did, and it decided to work in college administration. And so since 2015, I have had the privilege of leading my alma mater as the president, and I'm very grateful for that. So other than some time spent on active duty in Desert Storm in about a 15-month period that I lived in Southern California with my wife and her family, I've been here since the mid-'80s. And so if I'm a little biased about this place and it's the experience here, this university and the people who work here literally changed the trajectory of my life. And so I am very grateful for that, and grateful for the privilege to try to pay that forward just a bit. Before I let these other folks introduce themselves, and then we'll make a couple of comments and try to get to Q&A as soon as possible. I think we're live streaming this, so we may have some questions from folks viewing us online who couldn't be with us in person today, and Kristen will let us know if they have any questions or feedback for us. But 20 years ago today, on this date, I was in the Dixon Palmer building, and we had one television in the building at the time. And of course, somebody had come to our office early that morning and said that a plane had flown into one of the buildings at the World Trade Center in New York. And so I just remember very distinctly that day, a number of us crowding around the television and watching in horror what was happening. And so it was a tough day. And so I think, on the 20th anniversary of that date, I think it only appropriate for us to thank all of those who served that day, both the police and the fire and the EMT, our men and women in uniform who help protect this country and serve us at home and abroad, and then of course all the public servants who serve us each day, whether it's a school teacher or a nurse or a social worker, or you name it. So just a moment to say thank you to all of those who both keep us safe, take care of us when we are harmed, and look after each other every day. Let me start down here, and we'll start with Jeff Frederick, and then move on to Dr. Jefferson, Dr. McCaskill, and Dr. Reynolds. And if you guys would just introduce yourself, tell them who you are, what you do here, and a little bit about what your area covers, that would be terrific. Jeff?
I'm Jeff Frederick. I'm the provost, so I get to have an opportunity to work with all of our direct academic programs and all of our direct student success programs in terms of designing the undergraduate and graduate and doctoral level programs and making sure we're doing what we're supposed to do in our market to provide the best student experience possible in and out of the classroom. So that's a way that everyone who's been here a little bit longer has always known it and seen it to be. So it's just confirmed to me that this is that we have the right values, we have the right mission, we have the right approach. Our students will come here and they'll get a great personal experience. They'll find a mentor and they'll be ready for the rest of their life.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Antonio Jefferson, and I serve as our Assistant Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and I also oversee our licensing program. I've been at Wingate University for about 2 years. I came here from Middletown, Connecticut. And in my capacity, I essentially support the institution around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that is overseeing our Unity House Multicultural Center, that is working with faculty, staff, and students on ways to understand the underrepresented student, faculty, and staff experiences and the challenges that they encounter. Also working with our first-generation college students and ensuring that they have the tools and the skills to be successful here on campus, and just overall collaborating with the community as well. So putting diversity, equity, inclusion as a priority on campus and ensuring that everyone has the tools for success and the understanding.
Office of Counseling. I've been with Wingate for about 13, 14 years now. Seen lots of growth, lots of changes. And our office is heavily involved with everything COVID, of course. Aside from that, you know, we take care of our students and employees who are sick or injured, or if they have chronic diseases that they need help managing, we're available for that. We're available for wellness exams, education, pretty much anything that you would go to a regular doctor's office for. That's what we are here to help with.
My name is Mick Reynolds. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Campus Life. I've also been here, I think just started my 14th year. Dr. McCaskill and I just started a couple months at the same time. So my areas of responsibility are residence life, campus involvement, so the McGee Center, campus recreation, Greek life, and I work a little bit with the dining program too.
Thank you, Mick. A few others. After we break here, we'll all hang around in case there are any individual questions that you want to ask us. And so Brittany in the back. Brittany, if you'd raise your hand. Brittany is also a part of our team here. You have Corey a little further down. Corey, if you would raise your hand. Kristen Johnson-Yost over here works with me in my office, university spokesperson. And last and certainly not least, Chief Mike Easley. And when I was thanking our public servants before, you all might like to know that Chief Easley served our country in the Marine Corps and is also retired deputy sheriff of the Union County Sheriff's Department, and we are fortunate to have him as our Chief of Campus Safety here. So thank you all for being here, and we'll all be available afterwards. A couple of things I want to mention that are somewhat new this year. One, if you all have had a chance to go into the Dixon Palmer building, what is now the Crowder Welcome Center, and visit our campus store. That's a renovation that we've been working on for about a year and a half, and we're very proud of how that turned out and the service it will provide to students going forward. We've got some student workspace, our career services areas in there, as well as marketing and communication, of course, the Starbucks, the campus store, and that's where our admissions operation will be based out of going forward in the Crowder Welcome Center. So that's a new space for our student with lots of space for them to congregate and to get the kind of help they need to be successful at the university. Two other things we've implemented this year that we're really excited about. One is called Bulldog Central, and it is both online and in person. It's located on the first floor of the Stegall Administration Building, and it's to be a one-stop shop for your students' needs. So if they have a question about their meal plan or their bill or their financial aid or how to add a class or get a degree audit or you name it, that's a good place to start. And if the folks in that office who are trained in a lot of different areas on our campus, if they can't help your student directly or you directly, they will make sure that you get to the right office and get the answers that you need. Supplementing Bulldog Central this year, we have hired student success coaches. I think we just hired our last one last week, and I'll be meeting with them as they start their work. So it's 5 folks who will be working closely with our first-year students to ensure their success. So that's what, they are success coaches. No matter the topic, no matter the issue, we'll look for signs that your student may need an assist here or there, and that's what our success coaches are to do, is to support your student in whatever way we need or that we can be of help. And Dr. Jefferson also mentioned that last year, I believe it was last summer, we were able to renovate a facility on campus and turned it into our Unity House to support multicultural programming on campus. And so that facility and its programming continues to develop, and we're very proud and pleased to have Dr. Jefferson lead that effort for us. So is there anything else that you guys would mention and flag or sort of put a pin in to get us started? No? Oftentimes, folks have questions about campus safety and how it works. So let me say one quick word about it, and then I'll also ask Mick to say a few things about dining. since that's been a bit of a challenge as we've started this year. But campus safety, we have multiple levels of campus safety for our students. The first level on campus are actually peers. So we have resident assistants who are upper class students who live in the residence hall and look after their fellow students. The next level up, we have residence directors. They're generally recent college graduates who may be in graduate school studying for an advanced degree here, and they're usually over an entire residence hall or residential facility, whereas the RA usually just has a floor or part of a facility. Above the residence directors, we have area coordinators. These are folks who actually want to work in higher education for their career and in student personnel and in residence life, and they've often gone off and gotten graduate degrees in counseling, in student personnel, in social work, and they serve as area coordinators. So they look after our RDs. Chief Easley heads our campus safety unit, which are unarmed officers that are employed by the university. And so they are around campus, and they're really first responders. They'll help you get into a locked car. They help enforce policies. They help just keep our students safe and to support the residents' life staff. In addition to that, we contract with the town of Wingate for additional officers, armed officers that have patrolling responsibilities for our campus. And then the good news of geography is that we're only a half mile, less than a mile, from the Union County Sheriff's Department. And for many reasons and for many years, again, largely related to Chief Easley's good relationships there, we have support from the Union County Sheriff's Office. So those are the layers of safety that we try to provide in an open campus to do as good a job as possible. And we certainly need our students to do their part as well and make good decisions and always travel in pairs if it's late at night and do all the things that I'm sure you told them to do before you sent them off to live on a college campus. And so this year, as we've started, Chartwell's is our dining partner. And this is their second year of operation with us. We moved from Aramark to Chartwell's. We've generally really been pleased with the transition, but it has been very difficult at the beginning of this year to fully staff our facilities because of labor shortages. And we've been applying pressure from our end. Students have been letting us know that we need to improve here. And so we're doing all that we can to get our facilities as fully operational as quickly as possible. But it is, locally, everybody is having trouble finding hourly part-time help. And that's largely what runs our facilities. So if you have a son or daughter who's looking for a part-time job on campus, I know who's hiring and who's desperate to hire at good wages right now. Mick, what would you add about dining and just the current situation?
Yeah, and so, as Dr. Brown said, this is our second year with Chartwell's, but one of the things I always remind parents too, last year was a pretty atypical year. And so, as a result, they did a lot of to-go things, and so they had a lot of a different kind of setup than they have this year. And so I do think we're still feeling out what some of those things are, figuring out, every semester, every year, we track student traffic patterns on campus to see where they're going, when they're going there. And so I think we're finally, Chartwell's is experiencing that kind of for the first time. As Dr. Frederick said at the beginning, this is really their first opportunity to see what our campus is really kind of like. So I know that they're in the process of working towards that. And what I can say is that we meet every Monday with the management in the dining hall, and we give them feedback that we've got from. So the challenges that they're experiencing, not just on the labor end, but also in getting the kind of products that we want on campus. Our Chick-fil-A, our Starbucks, sometimes there are certain things that they just not, we're not unique in that way. The Chick-fil-A that I drive past every day on my way home has the same note right on the board that says we've got a limited menu because some of our products aren't here. But I promise you, Chartwell's is working through those things, and they've been doing their best and pulling all the levers that they can and trying to be creative and finding ways to get everything staffed and the right products there appropriately. So.
Said or didn't say, or would you go to questions? Perfect. All right. Well, what we do, we have some microphones up here, but we're a small enough audience. If you guys just ask the question, I'll try to repeat it for our online listeners. and then we'll turn it over to the person up here best able to answer your question. So did I see a hand up over here? Yes, ma'am. Right. So the question is, for athletes and other students who have obligations later in the day, can we also ensure that the hours are late enough to serve their needs and to make sure the menu in those later hours is robust enough to provide the students the kind of nutrition they need? Is that a fair summary of that? Dr. Reynolds, take it away.
Two things that I would add. Absolutely, for sure. That's something that if we need to address that, if folks are trying to pull those things, things off the line, or, oh, I don't want to get that extra pan, that is really important to let us know that that's happening so that we can go, once again, back to those folks at Chartwells and say, hey, that's not acceptable. 8 o'clock is 8 o'clock. One of the things we've also done, too, sometimes we've worked with the coaches in the past, too. I think when I first started here, I think the dining hall was open until 7:30, and we had the same complaint from athletes, and we said, okay, we'll stay open until 8. And then we noticed that the coaches just kind of pushed their practices back a little bit more, and I think we could get another gasser in. And so we can talk to the coaches too about what that is and make sure that they have that. But it's to your point, totally unacceptable to be pulling food off the line. And so the other thing I want to mention too for the athletes, one of the I think great things that sold us on Chartwells is that we have access to a dietitian. And so we actually have a dietitian that is working on campus with the Chartwells team. And so I'd encourage anybody, not just the student athletes, but anybody who's interested in kind of knowing a little bit more about what they're putting into their body and how they're fueling, especially, like I said, those athletes too. Absolutely. So we do work pretty close with the health center to identify, and anytime that they are concerned that might be an issue, we can get those folks, third parties, to come in and make sure that we're getting tested. But to answer the question a little bit more directly, so especially this time of year, that's a challenge, not just in Cannon, but in many of the buildings, just because of the nature of just because of the high levels of humidity. But a couple of the things that we've done to try to address that, one, putting dehumidifiers, large dehumidifiers that run all the time in the building, and then putting them actually individually in rooms has seemed like it has, over the last couple of years, has really helped kind of address that particular building as an issue. And so we're always trying to continue to get better. We also have a pretty robust response. If someone comes and says, hey, I think that there's mold, I'm concerned that there is, as we said, we can test with a third party. We can have our maintenance staff come in, also clean it, address it immediately. Our residence life staff is there to make sure that they're constantly monitoring that, getting feedback from students if there is a concern. So we do take it very seriously, and those are some of the things that we've done proactively to try to address that and make sure that that's not a concern moving forward.
So in terms of the room and the maintenance of it, if you'll just do a maintenance report on the room and where the mold is, and I think between our campus service center and our residence life staff, they'll follow up on the facility needs. And then the student health center is right next door to Cannon Residence Hall. And so if your son or daughter would walk over and see Sherry, she can help address the health issues related to it as well. I do think, having been here a long time, mold is always a challenge when we have this many people living together in these buildings. And so sometimes it is things that we can do to mitigate it, like an individual dehumidifier in a room often helps. And so we have some of those that we can provide. Sometimes students bring their own with them. So the dehumidifier helps. Oftentimes students who've not lived alone don't recognize that you can't push the desk up against the air conditioning unit so that the air can cycle correctly. So sometimes it's some of the cosmetic things that we do in the room that don't lead to good circulation as well. So we can come in and give some advice if there is a room layout issue that may be contributing to it. And again, it's somewhat we'll do the best we can. We'll make sure your son or daughter is safe. But I live in a 2,800 square foot house. It's just my wife and me right now, and we have a dehumidifier. So the question is, we talked about how we would react to the situation. What are we doing proactively to prevent circumstances around mold? So before students arrive each year, we go through and clean all of our residence halls and look for that and look for those things, monitor it during the summer. Again, I think we have about 1 million square feet under roof, so sometimes we may miss some things. But I think prior to the students moving in, we do everything that we can. We treat the rooms periodically in between sessions to mitigate mold development. And again, I think just when our campus service team and our custodial group are in the buildings, I think they are proactively identifying where there may be problems, and they report that back to people who can do something about it. So I would say those are the proactive things that we attempt to do to solve part of the problem from that side of it. Would you add anything, Mick?
I think, to maybe put a finer point on it. So the addition of the, at the beginning of every year, of these big dehumidifiers that you'll find in the building, that's part of our sort of, trying to be forward thinking, knowing that this time of year in particular, that you're going to have that as an issue. So I think we're putting those in. Those run all the time. They actually just drain right into a drain in a closet, so that it's constantly running and constantly monitoring that. And then we also have to that point, our campus services staff are checking those regularly and then checking what those readings are in those areas. So if something isn't functioning right, or let's say for whatever reason, we're finding that we've got high levels of moisture in the space, even then we can roll additional dehumidifiers into the space if we need to and necessary. So the campus services folks are monitoring what those numbers are within the building itself.
Thank you, Mick.
And I can speak to that just a little bit as well. This summer I asked Dr. Reynolds and his team to put me in every one of our residence halls during the summertime, so that I could see the various stages of the process in the time after May, when students generally leave, and before August when they return. What does our process look like? And I saw the whole range of ones they had completely finished, from thorough cleaning to imagining, the carpet, to looking behind all the areas where there might be something hidden, to areas where they had just started, because you obviously can't do all of it on the same day. So I wanted to live that experience and see how his team broke those down really on a building by building, hall by hall, room by room basis. And it's true that something might have been missed in one room or another in the summer. That's why we're continuing to ask our residence directors and our RAs and everybody to encourage our students, if they see something, let us know, because we're in every room, every summer, getting it as ready for fall as possible. But if we miss something, the fail-safe are the people that are in there, because we don't want to knock on that door every week and say, let me see if there's any problem going. We want to respect some element of privacy. So I can say that I looked into the process. I felt comfortable seeing all the different stages of it in all of our different buildings. Some of our buildings, admittedly, are newer than others and require less ongoing upkeep, but I got to see all of it, the full range of it, and I really appreciate the process and the systematic way in which they use that time between the middle of May and the middle of August to really go through, every inch of all of those rooms.
Thank you. The other thing I would put a plug in here, and if we didn't answer this sufficiently, please just stick around afterward and let us get your number and everything, and we can follow up on a one-on-one basis. But I'd like to put in a plug here for Dr. McCaskill and her team in the Student Health Center. I've always appreciated our level of care that we are able to provide on campus for students from a student health perspective, but it was never brought home more acutely to me than navigating COVID. Last year, there are 13 presidents within the South Atlantic Conference, and we are on calls every week throughout COVID to just compare notes about how we're doing on the campuses and what we can learn from each other and how we can support. And what I quickly realized is that we had a higher level of care and service than any of our peers. And so Dr. McCaskill is a nurse practitioner with the Doctor of Nursing practice degree. She has a second staff person who is a nurse practitioner, and then who are the remainder of your staff members? And so for a school our size, the level of student health expertise we have is quite unusual, and I think that's a real advantage. So talk a little bit about your staff and your team and what they work with students on.
Sure. So as Dr. Brown mentioned, we have 2 full-time nurse practitioners. We have currently 1 RN, 1 certified medical assistant, 1 certified nursing assistant, and we've also hired 4 additional temporary staff members, another RN, another medical assistant.
So students are responsible for doing their own cleaning.
Daily for the halls, but if they are individualized, it's less frequently from a university standpoint and more expectation from the student standpoint. Is that fair?
That's right.
Mick?
Daily in all the academic buildings as well, too.
Yeah.
I'll just say one additional thing about that. You know, in the world of COVID, we're a little extra aware of certain situations. And so if we had a situation where there was a positive case in a residence hall where there's a shared bathroom, then we would reach out to our housekeeping staff and ask them to, you know, go and do an extra clean. So there are times when it may be more than once a day.
Any other questions for the good of the group? Yes, ma'am.
How often are the newsletters sent out?
So, so your question is how often for the parent newsletter? Is that it? Brittany, can you help us out?
Yeah, so we are actually doing it once every 3 months. So that was quarterly.
So quarterly parent newsletters will come out from our office. Jeff, you want to talk just a little bit about what a student should be doing on their own to be as academically successful, taking advantage of tutoring, writing center, supplemental instruction? Could you give us the provost how to be successful at Wingate?
Absolutely. And I would say this is a particularly important conversation to have before you go back home tonight, tomorrow, whenever, because we're about to get to that point in time where tests often come in cycles. Typical class might have maybe 4 exams. So exam number 1, probably right around the corner, maybe this week. So the very first thing every student should have done the first week of class is go to office hours and individually knock on the door of their professors, which are usually kept open during office hours, and introduce themselves, demonstrate initiative indicating, I'm in your 9 o'clock class, I've never taken a world geography, I've never taken Chem 2, I've never taken microbiology before, how can I prepare? If they haven't done that yet, Monday is the first day to do that. I don't think anyone will be in their office today or tomorrow. But Monday, that process of starting the initiative starts with your student. And I mention this first because we are quite intentional in the way in which we hire our faculty. Yes, they conduct research and publish it, and that's important to them. But their first job here is to teach. And part of teaching is not just what goes on in those 50 or 75-minute classroom sessions, it's that availability in between the sessions. One of the advantages of coming to Wingate for your undergraduate education is you will find a mentor here. But the easiest way to find that mentor is to start knocking on doors and say, hey, I'm in your class. I know we have an exam coming up, or I had some questions about the content today, or you posted this thing on Canvas, our learning management system. Can we talk through about it? We're paying our faculty to be available to answer those questions, to make that connection with the student, to prepare them for that first exam. If that hasn't already happened, that's a really good question for you to ask. I would say when you're engaging your student via text or by a phone, rather than say, how did you do on that first test? A better question might be, did you go see your professor before your first test? We want to be modeling those initiative, derivative practices that will make them successful, not only their 4 years here, but everywhere else they go from there. The second tip really is to go to the Academic Resource Center. It's on the second floor of the Ethel K. Smith Library. It's right in the middle of the quad. Can't miss it. The second best question to ask, other than have you been to see your professors in office hours lately, is have you been to the Academic Resource Center, where there's free tutoring, free supplemental instruction. If there's at all a disability support need, they're there to work confidentially to assist with that. There are testing accommodations that can come out of that. There are preparation ways to prepare. There's tutoring for how to do college, as well as tutoring for how to succeed in a particular content-based course. That's really the second stop shop. And then the third as well is these success coaches that Dr. Brown mentioned earlier. Every first-year student is going to have a success coach that includes them in their caseload. And they will offer as much assistance as possible. Not only academic assistance, not only maybe walking them to see a faculty member to demonstrate how it's done before, if they've never been to see a faculty person in their office before, but walking them to the Academic Resource Center, taking a look at class notes, making sure that they're getting good things down, helping to learn how to plan out an academic calendar, making sure that they're studying not so much the night before, but starting the week before. So we've got those three levels, really. The direct influence is the place to start, with the faculty member teaching the course, who's grading the material, who's constructing the tests, the Academic Resource Center, and then the individual success coaches. Those are all really good questions to ask. Have you met your success coach yet? When's the last time you were in the library? Of all of the professors, this is a really good loaded one. Of all the professors you've been to in office hours this week, whose conversation did you enjoy the most? That's where the gold is. That's where the help is. And all of those are modeling the kinds of things that will make someone successful here. Everybody will have a class that comes easy, and everybody will have a class that, man, they're fighting like crazy, and it's still awful hard. That's the best place to start. Those three techniques. And what I would say is, if this is your son or daughter's first experience in college, they're moving up a class in terms of academic expectations. It's going to be a little bit more challenging. So I think the best questions are questions that reward the process of how to do well in school, not how'd you do on that test? Oh, I got a 73. A 73? You've never gotten a 73 before. You were always a straight A student. They get that. They're as dissatisfied with that 73 as you were when it entered your ears. So don't make them feel bad about the 73. Build them up on how the next time could be an 83 or a 93 with those three techniques. See your professor, go to the Academic Resource Center and ask for help. Get to know your success coach.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, ma'am.
We hired him this summer. Two started a couple weeks ago. One started last week, and then the final one comes this week.
Okay, and so, how are you going, you said they were for first year students, so obviously they were freshmen. Are you going to consider grabbing some of their sophomores as well, especially since last school term was their first year?
Yeah, the short answer is yes, there are support services. We have an advising team, and most advising across the university is done by individual faculty members. That's the mentor relationship that we're trying to drive from the beginning. But let's say you're a business major, and if you're a business major, you're probably not taking a pure business course until the second semester of your sophomore year. So how am I going to get to know somebody if I've never been in class with them? Well, for a lot of students, we have a separate core of academic advisors. They're the ones that helped register students in the summer for the first time before their first fall schedule. They're there to help particularly students who struggled academically last year. I would say one of the things we did last spring is we took all of the students who had a really rough first semester or had struggled during COVID, and we divided them up among all of the senior management of the institution for one-on-one mentoring. It was available. Now, many of our students took advantage of it, and they learned some stuff, and they helped out. Some of our students elected not to take advantage of it. I've got this. I'm going to figure it out. Generally speaking, those results, weren't nearly as strong. This university exists to help people, whether second year, first year, wherever. So, happy to talk to you afterwards. We'll get some individual help if you think it's needed. We'll make a specific plan. But essentially, really, the only thing someone has to do is demonstrate the initiative to go to the Academic Resource Center, to go to the advising office, to go see the dean, to go see their faculty advisor, and just put their cards on the table. Hey, I'm struggling with this class, or I'm struggling with this. How can I do it? For student athletes, they also have study halls. They have assistant coaches and graduate assistants who are helping them in that process as well. They should be taking advantage of that process. So there's lots of different mechanisms that are at place here, and they won't all work the same way. One person might really have a connection with a success coach. Someone else might find that faculty mentor like that. And then even though they're not in class with that particular professor anymore, they go time and time again to engage that professor. Coming here is an opportunity to find a mentor. But that's a two-way street too. So model that initiative. Talk about demonstrating that initiative to your students, because we will meet them halfway and we will go to the ends of the earth to help them. But a lot of times that first step probably needs to be taken by them.
One of the things that I'm really proud of, and I'm going to get these percentages wrong, so hopefully Kristen can correct me, but I think the number is since 2016, our minority student population has increased by 108%. I am correct, thank you for the nod. And that is, that both reflects the demographic changes in this country, but it also is a part of our mission and who we serve. Typically underrepresented students, students who are Pell Grant recipients, meaning they receive federal aid in terms of their financial need, and oftentimes first-generation college students. And so in fact, this year, in our incoming first-year student class, I think it was approximately 44% of the class were students of underrepresented minorities. And so for an institution like Wingate in our history, that is, in my mind, significant progress of who we're serving and what we're doing. And so I think it would be helpful for Antonio. It's one thing then to diversify your campus, right? You then have the rest of the equation. How do you include people? How do people feel like they belong? Last night I was talking to a number of families and they said their students felt at home here. They could see themselves here. And that's what we want for every student, is to feel like this is a community that they belong to. And then it gets to equity. What are our outcomes? And as a student who is the first in her family to go to college, is she having, based on her academic preparation, is she having the same level of success, or is there something that is diminishing her chances of success? And we want to address all of those things, and Dr. Jefferson is leading some of those efforts. So you mind talking a little bit about the First Generation Hall and a little more about some Unity House programming, and even how Lyceum and Trayvon Martin's mom come in, some of that stuff supports that effort?
Sure, absolutely. So, like Dr. Brown said, I am leading some efforts to ensure that underrepresented students feel included, that their challenges are heard, and that they're at the table. So, a little bit about the Multicultural Center. So, it is on the campus coming off of the highway. Inside Unity House Multicultural Center, there are 2 rooms with 65-inch televisions, 2 lounge areas, so students can come and relax. They can play video games. They can just really feel at home. On the walls, we have pictures of underrepresented students from the 70s, from the 80s, all the way up until a couple years ago. We also have, out of the 9 NPHC, our Divine 9 fraternities and sororities, we have 5 on campus. Those include Delta Sigma Theta, Sigma Gamma Rho, Omega Psi Phi, Kappa Alpha Psi, and Iota Phi Theta. For a campus to have that many NPHC organizations at this size is amazing. I get calls from other schools around the area, and they ask me, how do you have so many NPHC organizations on campus? And I'm like, these students are here, they're active, and they want to see what they want to see, so they get involved. Our Multicultural Center is open Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. However, we've extended the hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays to 9 p.m. So students can come in after hours to relax, again, hang out, do some work, do some tutoring one-on-one, things like that. We also have a conference room. In our conference room, there can be small meeting areas for our underrepresented students or our minority-based student organizations. As Dr. Brown said, coming up next Wednesday, we have Miss Sabrina Fulton who will be joining us. She is the mother of Trayvon Martin. So she'll be coming to chat about the experience of going through the killing of her son, and basically how to advocate, how to create some conversations around difficult events that happen throughout the country. So she'll be joining us next week. And a little bit about our first generation college program. We are excited about that. So I worked closely with Mick over the summer to create this opportunity for our first generation college students. So we currently have 51 students that are inside of the program. 33 of them live on the first floor of Northeast Residence Hall, so it is a live and learning community. So they eat together, they live together, they program together, they study together. They're also in a Gateway class together, which is our Gateway 101 is kind of our intro to college. So they are receiving support at all levels of the university. In addition to that, they also have peer mentors. So our peer mentors are mostly juniors and seniors. So they are checking in on them weekly, ensuring that they're going to class, ensuring that they're going to some of the things that Dr. Fredericks was talking about as far as the ARC and going to office hours and things like that. And we also encourage them to chaperone our first generation students to big events, whether it's the football game, whether it is the magic show that's coming up or something like that. So ensuring that they're getting out of their rooms, they're socializing, they're meeting other people, because that is sometimes the reason why they don't succeed here, is because they're not making those connections. So we're hoping that the first generation program continues to be that success. Actually, tomorrow we have one of our social events, which is called Sundays on Sunday. So students will be going over to Unity House and making Sundays and just relaxing, watching a football game or just hanging out outside and playing music. So these are some of the social events that we have in place to ensure that our first generation college students are successful, they're getting the support that they need to matriculate through campus.
Thank you. Kristen, is there anything else coming in online? Chief Easley, is there anything we should say that we've left out? You good? Brittany? All right, thumbs up. Any last comments from the peanut gallery here?
Just had one quick plug, and Dr. Jefferson, Dr. Frederick touched on it a little bit, but push your students to get involved on campus, right? It's for my money one of the best things that you can do, just like going to your faculty office hours, joining a club, joining a fraternity or a sorority, just getting involved, going to programs, right? Getting connected on campus is probably one of the best things. I think most of us would say that sometime in our college experience, right, there were people that invested in us, right? And a lot of those connections came because of involvement that we had on campus. And so the other thing that I would say is that if your student ever says, hey, there's nothing to do, I guarantee you that that is not the case. And so one of the things you can also ask them to, you can prompt them to, we have a campus involvement platform called Campus Labs. It's called WooSync, is really what we call it on campus. But there's an app that's associated with that. It's called Corq, C-O-R-Q. Your students can download that, and when they log in using their university account, they can see every single event on campus. And so if your student says, hey, there's nothing going on campus, have them download the Corq app if they haven't done so already, and look through that with them, and I guarantee you'll be able to pick 3 or 4 things in every given week that your student will be interested in.
Thank you, Mick. I know there are other things going on campus, and so to be mindful of everyone's time, we're going to conclude the formal part of our session now, but like I said, Chief Easley and we'll stay up here if there are any individual questions. But to tell one quick personal story and to end it on Mick's encouragement to get involved. So I think it was the fall of my senior year when I was a student here. And I was in Burris Hall, and I saw a flyer, and it was a flyer for a World Hunger Seminar. And you could sign up, it was free. And at the time, I had a friend who, bizarre, long story, he had decided to become a vegetarian because of world hunger. Long story for another day. But anyway, so I was curious to remain a good friend with John, to learn a little bit more about world hunger. So I went to this seminar. There were only like 3 people who showed up. All right, it's a World Hunger Seminar, college students, not the type of thing. The person teaching the class, leading the class, was our campus minister at the time. His name was Jim McCoy. And so I was a curious guy, and I was interested, and so over the course of that semester, we got to know each other. because as some people could attest who were colleagues of mine, campus ministry was not the place you would have expected a young Rep Brown to hang out in 1988, all right? So bumping into the campus minister wasn't going to naturally happen for me, but the World Hunger Seminar put us together. About 5 months later, that campus minister asked me if I wanted to stay at Wingate and help him start a volunteer student service organization. At the time I was thinking about law school, Marine Corps, and Peace Corps. They all made sense to me. Those were my plans, but I wasn't sure yet. So I said, yeah, why not take a couple of years and figure this out? Well, simply going to that World Hunger Seminar leads me to standing up here and addressing you as the president of my alma mater today. So that one decision, and so you never know when your son or daughter gets involved, what that experience leads to and how it may change her or his life. And so I could not concur more with Mick. This is a walking, breathing example of what just getting involved, how it can change your life in generations to come. So anyway, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for entrusting us with your sons and daughters and family members. It's a privilege, and we take that responsibility very seriously. So please come on down if you have individual questions, and enjoy the rest of the day, and let's beat Fayetteville State, right? All right, thank y'all so much. Appreciate it.